to Norway for the start of Season 2. We'll be hoping to follow on from a strong first season, which ended with us claiming our first trophy by winning the Cup, alongside a second place finish in the league, which could have been even better, but for a late stumble. Since the end of the season, things have been busy with a lot of comings and goings, so let's see how the squad has changed as we embark on the new season. On the first day of 2024, we saw our first departure from the club. 35-year-old, at the time, Ruben Christensen, departing for French side Guingamp on a free transfer. A week later, we saw a flurry of activity as the transfer window opened properly in Norway. Joining Christensen in leaving was Marcus Fandino, a teenager that we didn't feel was going to make it here, who joined Odd also on a free. Free transfers were very much the order of the day, as we also welcomed 4 players on the same day, none of whom cost us a single krona. You may recall the name Ruben Yttergård Jensen from our summer transfer roundup. The ageing midfielder has finally arrived, and, as long as we can get others to do the running for him, his playmaking ability could open up many a Norwegian defence. Young left-back Mikkel Tveiten has been brought in from Lynn and will spend some time in the reserves this season, barring an injury crisis. Hopefully he can start fulfilling some of his undoubted potential soon. Our new backup goalkeeper is Idar Lisgard, signed from Arsenal. As long as we keep him away from big matches, he should be fine, and the aim this season is for him to provide the competition to Max Weiss to ensure the young German keeps improving as we want him to. The final free arrival was Finnish midfielder Ville Koski. He's solid as a ball winner and again would be handy in an emergency and still has room for improvement that could see him challenge for a place in the first team. If not, anything we get for him in the future is pure profit. Our first splash of cash brought Fabian Holst Larsson in from Strømsgodset for £1 million. He will actually spend the season on loan at Odd, his skill set putting him in the bracket of being a little off the first team, but too good to spend a season in the second division. Odd, relegated from the top flight last season, occupy that middle ground that should test him sufficiently, but also allow him to perform well and start to fulfil his undoubted potential. We recouped that money the following day as Munga Simba left for the Chinese Super League on a £1.1 million deal. He scored the last goal of last season for us as he made it 3-0 in the cup final, but with the adjustment to the tactic and Matheson's resultant switch to right wing, he was only going to be third choice, so we elected to cash in while we could. The deals were coming thick and fast, and the very next day saw 2 more. Coming in was Vegard Erlien, pretty much direct replacement for Munga Simba, but with the advantage of being Norwegian. He provides cover on both flanks when he's healthy, which has been a slight problem. He has gone down with injury 3 times since arriving, a tight calf every time, which is a bit of a concern. Given his scout report highlighted he was injury prone though, we can't say we weren't warned. Right back Sven Kroner returned home to Denmark, joining Randers in a £400,000 switch, as we tried to cut back on the number of foreign players. The thinking behind this was to give us room in our limit of 9 foreign players, just in case someone unmissable popped up on our radar later in the window. Another fullback, this time on the left side, left the club a couple of days later. Tore Pedersen was very much a backup, with young star David Muller-Wulf nailing down the left-back spot, and, it was felt, better options were out there than Pedersen, who was never likely to improve beyond the player he already is. Hence his move to LA Galaxy for £90,000. The same day saw us add some depth at playmaker with the arrival of Vebjorn Hoff from Rosenborg for £425,000. Should Yttergård Jensen's legs start to fail him, Hoff would be a more than able replacement and helps us rotate in central midfield to try and keep the veteran fresh. Our South American pipeline produced another bargain talent with the arrival of Argentinian Franco Quiroz for just £180,000. He replaces Pedersen as our backup left back and, whilst not being quite as strong defensively, is a more rounded fullback and offers a little more threat going forward. Our decision to go all in on Max Weiss as the future in goal was rubber-stamped with the departure of last season's first choice Matthias Dingeland. Unwilling to settle for being Weiss's backup, he, like Pedersen, also ended up in America, joining Columbus for £1.3 million. The next arrival proved to be the biggest news story of the transfer window, as it caused a major disagreement with the board. Erlend Dahlreiten looked just the sort of man we wanted to start at right back, and a £1.5 million fee was agreed with Rosenborg. At this point the board stepped in and refused to sanction the move as they thought the fans would react badly to a signing from such a major rival. The fact we had already signed Hoff from the same club didn't seem to persuade them they were wrong, but they gave me the chance to argue my case. Time and again I insisted we'd be allowed to bring Reitan in until eventually the only 2 options left were to give up the fight or threaten to quit my post. I took a deep breath and chose the latter. The board relented and we finally got our man. A signing, by the way, the fans were very happy with. January was almost over by this point, but the deal showed no signs of slowing just yet. Next out of the club was Gonzalo Freitas, sold to Sigma Olomouc in the Czech Republic for $5,500. We toyed with keeping him as a centre-back, but his waning physicals outweighed his excellent aerial ability, so he was moved on. Another man signed last season was the last to leave in the current window. Joel Kabongo, who struggled to accept a backup role and went on loan to Iceland last season, was sold to Swedish side Brommapoikana for $30,000, as we looked to focus on more game time for some talented homegrown lads this season. That decision seemed to be reversed a couple of weeks later when Isak Kjelsrud arrived from Tromsø for $725,000. The 21-year-old is a possible future star, but his arrival means Rasmus Holten returns to the reserves and will have to bide his time a little longer. When one door closes, another door opens, so the saying goes. This was very much the case when Wellington went down with a long-term injury, leaving us short in defensive midfield. A look through our scout reports found Marko Izovic, a hard-working 22-year-old Serb available for $1.5 million from Voždovac. He is a ready-made replacement for Wellington already and can happily take over the starting spot from Heltner Nielsen when his contract expires at the end of 2025. With money burning a hole in our pockets, we splashed out £2.7 million each on two more new faces. Daniel Bassi arrived, again from Tromsø, and he should provide some flair on the left flank, where he'll back up Jairo Velez with his pacey dribbling. The other big money move probably won't be seen this season, as he's got a little way to go to compete with Rasmussen and Jensen Vasberg for the starting Mazzala spot. But we expect him to push through in the near future, and again he is a good option to have available if injuries bite hard. Bassi's arrival meant space needed opening in the squad, and the obvious man to make room for the youngster was Niklas Castro. He was excellent last season and will be missed, but Velez had claimed the starting spot, and with Bassi needing game time to develop, Castro was sold to Albacete for $1.1 million. Transfer deadline day saw one final bit of business as we spent another $650,000 on Swedish 18-year-old defensive midfielder Sigge Janssen. Definitely one for the future. It gives us two replacements for our ageing starters, albeit both foreign. It might be that Janssen does reach homegrown status in the future though. We've had a good pre-season, and I've been given a new 3-year contract, so it's time to start the season proper, beginning with a trip to Lillestrøm. We could hardly have made a better start to the new season, as after new signing Itegard Jensen saw one effort hit the post and a second blocked on the line, Hegebo forced the ball in to open the scoring in just 3 minutes. The big striker was on the scoresheet again half an hour later, rising to head home our second. Lillestrøm hit back right at the start of the second half, as we failed to organise after a corner and allowed Lene Olsen to pull one back. Not even a minute later, Hegebo produced the moment of the game and the goal of the week with a stupendous curling effort from outside the box. The scoring was completed when Hegebo again outjumped the Lillestrøm defence to grab his and our fourth. Hegebo was added again on 20 minutes, finishing neatly after Matheson's original cross was recycled by Itegard Jensen and Velez to open the scoring. It was a lead that didn't last long, as Christensen guided a header into the net after an ineffectual clearance. In injury time at the end of the first half, we retook the lead, Itegard Jensen's through ball finding its way to Jensen Vasberg, who blasted it home. Haugesund gifted us a third when Bertelsen played a suicidal pass across his own defence that allowed Velez to roll the ball into an empty net. Hegebo made it 4 with his 6th goal already this season, powering home from a Velez corner with 15 minutes to play. This one was settled when David Muller-Wolf got on the end of Itegard Jensen's corner to head home the only goal of the game. This was a meeting of the early front-runners as first visited second, and it was the hosts who started brightest, Stenovic's curled free kick clipping the bar on 7 minutes. They continued their good start, but Valsvik's header onto the bar only led to Sandberg's looping header that Weiss gathered safely. We clearly hadn't learned our lesson from that, and Valsvik opened the scoring from another corner just 3 minutes later. It took us over half an hour to get into the game, Velo's doing the hard part with an excellent touch to set himself free, only to fire wide when you would have bet on him to score. We finally restored parity early in the second half, Matheson controlling Seri Larsson's ball over the top, riding the challenge from the injury-hampered Dahl, before cutting back to Jensen Vasberg, who fired home. Just after the hour mark, Strømsgodset retook the lead, Valsvik once again heading home from a corner. We weren't the only ones repeating our mistakes though, as barely a couple of minutes later, Strømsgodset again gave Jensen Vasberg too much time and space, allowing him to fire in a shot that Gabane deflected past Medina in the Strømsgodset goal. There was a heated exchange on the bench between Jarman and set-piece coach Svein and Groa when Gabane headed Strømsgodset back in front for their third goal from a corner. Only 7 minutes remained when we claimed a share of the spoils. Strømsgodset, clearly expecting the cross from out wide, left Heltner Nielsen and Yttergaard Jensen in too much space on the edge of the box, and the off-season signing drilled a low shot into the corner to make it 3-3. Our featured man this month is new signing Ruben Yttergaard Jensen. Whilst Hegebo grabbed 6 goals in those 4 matches, it was the playmaker who was clearly pulling the strings. He wasn't completely on his game in our opening match, but he has produced at least 2 key passes in every game and registered 2 assists and a goal during the month. The highlights show just how often he was involved in the build-up to our goals, getting at least some sort of touch in 9 out of the 12 we scored across the month. The assists report bears this out and shows him to be very much at the heart of our attacks, playing a lot of passes and creating 0.5 assists per game from deep. The physical output chart shows that he's doing this while not needing to chase around the pitch. It doesn't cover a lot of ground and certainly not all that fast, as befits a 35-year-old who would admit himself that he's not physically what he once was. Get the ball to his feet in a bit of space though, and you can stand back and watch the magic happen. We've had another very good start to the season and currently top the table. This could be partly down to our much more intensive friendly schedule that gets us match fit and tactically aware a few games ahead of the rest of the competition. Things will start to get busier in the next 2 months. We begin our defence of the NM Kupen away to 3rd Division opposition, so we'd hope to add to this fixture list with a few more cup matches, and that will test the depth of the squad as we start having to rotate. One last bit of news has seen the club part ways with Svein and Groa. With every goal we've conceded so far coming from, or in the aftermath of, a corner, we've decided it's time for an upgrade. Thank you very much for watching, like, comment and subscribe, and come back next time to see if we can continue our good start to the season. Bye bye for now.